Chapter 4. Temple and Pip bounded through the forest on the back of Skip. Spots of sun peeked through the trees. Dust kicked up from the dry dirt as Skip's hooves battered it. Pip and Temple were both hot from the humidity of the forest, sweat dripping down their backs. The smell of smoke gave way to that of wet leaves and dew. "What are we looking for?" Pip asked. "A way to the Chimera's kingdom," Temple replied. The pair continued until the sound of rumbling emitted from Pip's stomach. "Temple, I'm hungry," he whimpered. His stomach punctuated the statement with a low growl. Temple looked concerned. "Aw, buddy, it's okay. Don't worry, I'll find us something," he reassured. He glanced around the forest, looking for anything they could use as food. First, to his left, berries in a bush, a bright orange color. Might be poisonous. Too risky, he thought. Then to his right, mushrooms. Could just be a bad trip waiting to happen, he thought nervously. Then above, there were fruits hanging in a tree. Leech fruits, to be specific. They were large, blue, spherical fruits, almost shaped like an apple. However, they needed to be cooked, unless you were asking for stomach issues, and even then, they were too high in the tree to reach. Temple sighed. It seemed as though nothing would be able to feed Pip, until they heard a splash up ahead. With renewed vigor, Temple coaxed Skip to run toward the source. Soon enough, the sound of rushing water filled the air. As they continued, through the grove of ferns and tall trees, a river slowly became visible. Temple leaped off of Skip and walked to the edge of the rushing water. Pip followed. Within the water, shimmering silver shapes moved slowly down the river. Fish. Now that was something they could both eat. Temple pulled out his sword. "Stand back," he warned Pip as he raised the blade, staring into the crystal-clear water. "What are you—" Pip began. Before he could finish his sentence, a splash was once again heard, followed by a thump. Temple panted, then lifted the sword, revealing a large silver fish impaled upon it. With one hand, he grasped the fish's tail, pulled it off, and tossed it to the ground. The process continued a few more times, until they had a pile of at least 5 fish. They had their food. The only question was, how would they cook it? Temple glanced at the reflective piece of metal that was his sword. Instantly, he had an idea. "Pip, grab me some wood, please," he told Pip. Pip ran toward a nearby bush, picking up every twig he could find with his tiny hands, ending with an armful of wood. He dropped it in front of Temple. "What's all this for?" he asked. "Watch and learn, kid. Watch and learn," Temple replied, tilting the sword sideways. Sunlight glinted against the metal, landing directly in the pile of wood. After a few seconds, it started smoking. Then finally, it burst into a small ball of flames. Pip was amazed. Temple smiled at his reaction, grabbing a stick to roast the fish with. Later that night, the pair were simply resting beside the fire. Their stomachs were full, and the sun had set, leaving a shimmering moon and twinkling stars. "Temple?" Pip asked. "Yes," he replied. "You remember how you wrote me that letter?" Temple nodded. "Yeah, I do. Why?" "Well, I've been thinking. If I was Garmon's grandson, why didn't he keep me? And why didn't you?" he asked, sounding genuinely curious. Temple sighed. "Sorry I asked," he mumbled. "No, it's okay. On the day you were dropped at the orphanage, I went back to the palace to talk to Garmon, and he told me—" Pip froze in anticipation. "What?" he asked. Temple smiled. "He told me that he couldn't keep you because you reminded him of his dead son, and it broke his heart to think about it." Pip's expression fell into one of gloom. "Do you think he died of a broken heart?" Temple sighed once more. "He very well might have." Pip yawned, eyes drooping. Temple smiled again. "You look tired, bud. Get some sleep, okay?" he reassured him, ruffling his hair. Pip's eyes slowly closed, and Temple followed suit. Before he fell asleep, he made a promise in his mind. "I'll protect you, Pip. I promise." Chapter 5. The next morning, Pip sat up, rubbing his eyes. Temple was putting out the fire. Sorry guys, that was my tummy. And Skip was laying down, head resting against the ground. Temple turned and saw that the tiny elf was awake. "Hey, Pip, how'd you sleep?" Pip nodded and gave a thumbs up. Temple laughed. Good. Listen, today we're going to make some progress. We're so close to the Chimera's kingdom, I can feel it. After a quick breakfast of apples, the pair mounted Skip once more. They galloped through the woods, when suddenly the smell of smoke wafted through the air. Temple pulled on the reins, and Skip slid to a halt. "Do you smell that?" he asked Pip. Pip nodded. A grunt was heard next. It didn't sound like the roar of a chimera, but there was the same smoky odor, the same flapping of wings. Temple eased Pip to move slightly forward. He clutched the reins with one hand, shield draped over his arm, clutching his sword in the other. Skip was shaking his head around fearfully. Using his sword, Temple slowly pushed back the leaves. There, standing in a clearing and blocking a bridge over the river, was a dragon. Smoke puffed from its nostrils with every breath, filling the air with a haze. Its wings remained up, as if about to take flight, but it simply paced back and forth in front of the bridge with no apparent reason why. Pip shivered in fear, eyes wide with shock. "See that?" Temple whispered, gesturing to its nostrils, which were spewing smoke like a dying firecracker. Pip nodded. "They only do that when threatened," he noted. "But what's it afraid of? I don't see any—" A tiny croak got their attention. Looking down, the pair noticed a rather large bullfrog, hopping along the bridge's edge. The dragon's wings flared in anger, and it reared its head upward, opening its mouth and releasing a stream of fire at the helpless creature. Needless to say, the poor frog was smoked. Pip's eyes widened further, if that was even possible, and his ears twitched with fear. He could only imagine what would happen if it got a hold of him. Skip knew it too, beginning to back away from the clearing, until— snap! A branch crunched under Skip's hoof. Temple cringed at the sound, and Pip could only watch as the beast turned its head, noticing him there. "Oh my God," Temple gasped in shock. Compared to them, this dragon was an absolute monster. Pip shivered and covered his eyes. Skip reared in terror, throwing them both onto the ground. Getting back on his feet, Temple neared the dragon. "Get back!" he shouted, slashing the air in front of it as a warning. Pip hid behind Skip, shaking with fear. Would Temple be okay? The beast roared, spewing its noxious breath in Temple's face. It smelled of sulfur, of gasoline. Then he saw it. The ball of fire coming even closer to the dragon's waiting mouth. Pip saw it too. "Temple, run!" he shouted as a plume of fire erupted from the dragon's open jaws. Temple rolled backward, attempting to hit the beast, getting dangerously close to the edge of the river. Pip could see it now. The river was fast, even faster than the one they'd caught fish from the day before. There was also a drop before the river that was about a foot taller than Temple. If he fell in, he'd be a goner. Temple leaped back as the dragon attempted to knock him down, rolling and slashing and blocking with his shield. The dragon made a sharp turn, whipping Temple with his long tail, finally knocking him onto his back. The river was dangerously close. Pip's heart filled with fear, its pounding drowning out the world. Everything else faded from his vision, the only thing he was able to see being his mentor, hovering inches from death. He couldn't stand idly by anymore. He had to save him. Running toward Temple, adrenaline coursing through his veins, he flopped onto his belly, reaching a small hand out toward his mentor. "Temple, run!" he repeated. With a groan, Temple got to his feet just as the dragon sauntered back over. When it saw its enemy walking away, already battered, it roared in a display of seething anger. It stomped toward the pair on all fours, attempting to grab Temple in its strong jaws. He closed his eyes and raised his shield, preparing to feel sharp fangs sinking into him. But instead, he felt nothing. But he heard a roar, a loud smack, and then Pip. Opening his eyes, he saw Pip clinging to the cliff for dear life. "Temple, help me!" he cried. The dragon once again thundered toward Temple. He reflexively rolled to the side, but the dragon's tail whacked at Pip. The tiny elf screamed in terror as he fell into the roaring water. The dragon now forgotten, Temple screamed, running along the river's edge, trying to reach out for Pip. "Pip, grab my hand!" he yelled. Pip attempted to reach out for Temple as the roaring water dragged him down the river, large rocks cutting his legs. But it was no use. The current was so strong, he was having trouble staying above the water's surface. Skip ran alongside his master, to which Temple quickly mounted him, grabbing a large vine and reaching it toward Pip. "Grab on, kiddo!" he yelled again. Pip tried to see through burning eyes, seeing something green being thrust toward him. He tried to grasp it with wet fingers, but to no avail. Knowing that Pip couldn't grasp anything, he knew what he had to do. It was dangerous, and he knew he might die, but he had no choice. If he wanted any chance for Pip to survive, he had to do this. Temple quickly removed his shield and sword, placing them on Skip's saddle. "Don't wait for me, Skip! Run!" he yelled. Without turning to see if the horse had obeyed, he dove into the water. The current battered his lean body, and he tried desperately to stay above water. "Pip!" he called out. At first he saw nothing. At last, he saw something. A flash of blue. Desperately, he reached for it. It was Pip, all right, but he was completely unconscious. Oh no. "Skip!" he screamed next, hearing the thundering of hooves over the roaring of the current. Something rammed into his leg. Something hard. He bit his tongue, trying not to scream in pain. He started to tremble, tasting blood in his mouth as he tried to reach the river's edge and grasp the shore. He felt something clamp at the back of his soaked tunic. Skip. Temple sighed in relief, forgetting about his pain, but now he had to worry about the injured child in his arms. "Pip," he called out. "Wake up, buddy!" He pressed an ear to Pip's chest, hearing a small, thundering heartbeat. It was weak, but still there. His own heart filled with worry, sinking into his stomach as he gently shook the smaller elf. Skip even nibbled on his ear. His eyes filled with tears, beginning to lose hope, until at last, Pip's eyes shot open, and water exploded from his mouth in a torrent of coughs. Temple gently patted his back. When the fit was over, Pip looked up at Temple. "Temple?" he croaked, voice weak. Temple hugged the child, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Don't you ever do that again! I thought I'd lost you," he yelled, though not out of anger. "Are you hurt?" he asked more gently this time as he checked Pip over. Shockingly, even though he was covered from head to toe in small cuts and bruises, he seemed largely unscathed. What he needed to worry about was the throbbing pain in his now injured leg. He winced, rolling up his pant leg and seeing the swollen flesh that covered his ankle. It was almost the size of the small pumpkins that grew outside the barn. Pip's eyes widened. "You're hurt!" he cried. Temple nodded. "I don't think I can walk on this," he groaned. All of Pip's earlier joy at being alive faded instantly. On top of his mentor being injured, Pip realized they'd floated so far down the river that now he had no idea where they'd ended up. Now they were lost, injured, their resources destroyed, and no help in sight. "Temple, what are we gonna do?" he asked, now more worried than ever. Hi everyone, it's TavyGamer404. Apologies for those little growls a few minutes ago. That was my tummy. I'm hungry. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed chapters 4 and 5. I might just do 2 chapters a video now. But anyways, I'm glad you enjoyed. If you've made it to the end of this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Along with, just all the other YouTube things. Maybe give me some hype points. I don't know how to set that up yet, but yeah. Anyways, TavyGamer404 out. Peace.